Hey guys, what's going on? We got another PvP video as Enhancement Shaman. We are back in the solo shuffle, doing our weekly solo shuffle, or every couple weeks, I don't know. And we're in a bit of a weird lobby. Now, I thought this was going to be an absolute terror for me, but it turned out not too bad. But anyways, we have a Frost Mage, we have an Enhanced Shaman, which is me, Holy Paladin, Arms Warrior, and a Demo Lock. Now, I am paired up with the Frost Mage right now. So my main goal here is to try and go after the Warlock when I can, but at the same time, I want to try and LOS him and pull the Warrior into bad positions. Because the Warrior is more likely to be way out of position than the Warlock, it's pretty easy to pull the Warrior around wherever I want. Now, keeping pressure onto the Warlock is good because we want to make the Monk use his defensives on the Warlock, like you saw the Cocoon. So now the Warlock ported out, so I'm going to kind of leave, dip behind a pillar. The Warrior can either follow me or dip away, and as you can see, went after my Mage, so I decided to jump back in after I got a little bit more health. Now the Warlock's gone away once again. I use a defensive here, which is my Stone Bulwark, while trying to pull the Warrior away from his healer. Getting right in, I pre-dropped Tremor Totem just in case the Warrior got a double fear. It was one of those things. And I'm also using Earth Grab constantly to lock down the Demo Lock's pets. So you can just see that we're getting a bit run over here, so I back off, go ahead and burrow. Might not have needed to burrow, but better safe than sorry, and I have Ancestral Bulwark coming up, or Ancestral Shift, I don't know, Astral Shift? Yeah, that one, that sounds better. So, yeah. So now I'm trying to get back onto the Warlock. He's very far away from his portal, so that means I have some uptime available. I get bopped, so I quickly swap back to the Warrior. There's Cocoon, go for the Hex onto the Monk, and I actually land it, which is great. But since they have so much defense up, it was kind of pointless. So since Cocoon's still up, I'm going to lasso and try and back off and bring this Warrior behind a pillar as much as I can. And once I start dipping behind a pillar, he tends to notice and not want to follow, which is completely fair. Now, this is where it gets a bit more awkward because the Warrior wants to hit me, but he doesn't want to follow me, so I have to pull him out to go after things. So now we're back on the Warlock, trying to put as much pressure on him, and he's going to pour it out as soon as he feels like he's in danger, because he just used Undying Resolve. I get low, so I start backing off very quickly. The Warrior's kind of chasing me. I'm behind the pillar with my healer until he gets me topped up, and the Warrior then switches over, so I drop a Cap Totem, try and get a double stun. The Mage had to commit a block, which is a bit unfortunate, but better than dying like usual. So the Warlock gates and ports at the same time while the Warrior pops die by a sword, so there's not much I can do here until it's over, so I wait, and then now it's over, so I start sending in my wind strikes, and we get a huge amount of damage on him, while the Monk was quite far behind a pillar, and we pulled him very far away, and we were able to take him out. So now, very similar plan to the first match is kind of go after the Mage, put some pressure on him, get some defensives used by him, and then try to bring the Warrior down or bring the Warrior into bad positions. So you can kind of see here the Warrior knows what we want to do. So I'm going to jump in on the Mage. He jumps away quickly. Perfect. That's fine. I commit some cooldowns here. A little bit of Doom Winds and Storm. Pop Ascendance and start wailing on the Warrior. You can see he had to use Die by the Sword. Perfect. So I quickly switch to the Mage. He starts backing off, but I get quite a bit of damage on him, forcing the healer to send a bit and cause the Mage to use Mass Barrier, I think it is. So here I go for a Hex, but the Mage notices and dispels it pretty quickly. So I know Hex isn't that useful here, but I still go for them anyways, even though I should be more or less hexing the Mage. But at the same time, it's just get the Hex out there, I guess, for the most part. But yeah, it would be more useful on the Mage because nobody can dispel the curse other than the Mage. So that's why I would commit it to the Mage. But here we start getting a bit of damage. Go ahead and interrupt the Monk. This is going to scare the Monk a little bit. Make him use possibly some cooldowns, but unfortunately, we don't get enough damage onto the Warrior anyways, but I get a full Hex. The Mage blinked in pretty far, so he couldn't dispel right away, so I was able to get him to lasso. And now this where we want to kind of start pulling the warrior behind a pillar. You can see he knows what I want to do, so he starts backing off right away. Drop a cap totem, drop a root. I missed my stun, which is a bit unfortunate, but and I could have moved the second one over, but I didn't because I suck. But I missed my primordial storm, which really sucks there, and I can't quite chase after the mage, so I just go, okay, well, let's just hit the warrior. So we start getting that. We get died by the sword, which is perfect. And I get quite low, and I didn't really want to commit astral shift, so I just go ahead and burrow off. That's fine. And here is where I commit some damage, and he uses his shield, so I go ahead and hacks. Boom. He's out of the fight for now. I pull the warrior, see what I can do. Nothing quite amazing happens, but I use Primordial Storm, see if I can't get a bit of damage. Good solid chunk of damage. There's Cocoon. I have Ascendance rolling, so I just quickly switch to the Mage. See if I can't get Ice Block, and there's Ice Block. So now we go back to the Warrior, hoping that Cocoon might fall off. I put some more pressure onto the Mage. This way the Monk has to heal both targets, because my Warlock is just doing insane amounts of damage to the Warrior. So I commit some damage onto the Mage to force the Monk to heal both targets. But here is the most difficult match is myself and the warrior versus two casters. This is always a nightmare, especially when you're fighting a frost mage. Now, majority of the times you fight a comp like this, you want to go for the closest caster. So you can see here, the first target we're going to focus is the warlock. And the reason being is because warlocks don't have too much mobility, and you can shut down their casting, unlike mages. But here, the warlock ports out, he uses both gate and port. So we go ahead and quickly switch to the mage because he was nearby, and now the closer target is the warlock, so we just quickly swap to him. And you can see we get a good chunk of damage. There's Cocoon. So now there's really not much point in hitting the warlock. So I quickly collect my soul, go for a hex onto the mage to shut him out for a few seconds, and then we continue back on the warlock, getting a bit of damage. He ports. The mage is right on top of us, so we go ahead and start attacking the mage, getting a huge amount of damage. And you can just see how fast he almost fell over there. So there, we missed a kick onto the monk, I guess. I was gonna go for a hex, but then I realized hex is on cooldown, which sucked. So we quickly run over to the warlock, force him to gate. Perfect. We come across. I was gonna switch to the mage, but ended up getting ringed. I should not have trinketed that, but it is what it is. I don't know why I did, but I trinketed that. Is what it is. But anyways, you can see the mage is kind of going for some damage, so I go ahead and quickly hex, root the warlock and the monk right there, so that way I can connect to them, get stunned. But they're being pushed towards my warrior, which is great. Quickly switch back off. They got a stun onto the monk, which is nice, but there's not much damage able to connect here, so we quickly do a bit of damage to the warlock, seeing what we can get out of him. Maybe get anything at all, but nothing, so I quickly swap over to the mage. As I lasso him, I get feared, which is quite unfortunate, but it does happen. So there I get another hex onto the mage. He ends up having to trinket it to keep his damage high. So I use a root on the mage also, but I switch to him because, I don't know, I felt like maybe the mage was the right play here. He uses his greater invis, which causes, I really hate that ability, but it is what it is. So I quickly connect, get an ascendance off, start doing a bunch of damage. There's ice block. Okay, so I'm just going to switch back to the warlock. Boom. And then as soon as that's over, he gets cocooned. I switch back to the mage. Make sure he can't get the polymorph off. Doing as much damage as I possibly can to this mage. He blinks away, I lightning bolt, and I get a big Voltic Blaze on him for 1.1 million, able to finish him off. So I was quite lucky on my part to get that. But yeah, these matches took quite a while, which I assume because it's a demo lock and a frost mage, so it's always dragged out with those classes. But again, we're with the monk this time, but me and the frost mage, same plan. Pull the warrior, but also hit the warlock as much as I can. So there we forced out defensive from the warrior, which is die by the sword. Perfect. I still have ascendance ready to use, so I'm going to go ahead and pop it here right after my doom wins, and I'm gonna start putting a whole bunch of damage into the warlock. But then I see the paladin right on top of me, so I start pressuring him as much as possible. Paladins are very squishy to an extent, but you can see here we just get a whole bunch of extra pressure onto the warrior. There, I think, is ultimate sacrifice. Not really sure, but they used some sort of defensive there because the warrior started taking little damage. And oh, while this is happening, the warlock is constantly fearing us, which does suck, but it is what it is. So I start putting a whole bunch more damage into the warrior. Now the paladin's kind of very close to us, so I have my eyes on him, but there ain't much we can do about him. So we just continue on to the warrior as much as I can. So now I'm quickly swapping to the warlock, see if I can't get any defensives. There's Dark Pact, but the warrior's right on top of me, so I'm not too worried about anything else. I'm just cleaving down, getting as much damage as possible. You can see my numbers are quite high, surprisingly. Actually, this entire arena I was doing a significant amount of damage. There's the portal from the warlock, so now I want to back off because I don't want to put my monk in any awkward positions. Go ahead and root all the warlock's pets, and then I'm going to dip behind the pillar, see if the warrior follows me. Nothing. So I'm just going to run back out. Not really worry about it. I know the warrior wants me, so I'm going to hit him as much as I can. There is the spear. I go ahead and astral shift. Probably would have been better to use burrow, but you know, you make the split second decision and I chose the wrong one, but it is what it is. I still have burrow, so that's good news. But here the warrior starts really backing off. He knows he's in danger because the paladin doesn't have much and he has nothing left. So I go ahead, pop bloodlust, perfect, double stun, doom winds, ascendant, start putting a whole bunch of damage into this warrior. Now, the better decision probably would have been to send it into the warlock, like we are now. Bam, a whole bunch of damage. Make sure I collect my soul because I am doing a lot less damage, but I don't even think I realized he ripped our soul, so it's a bit unfortunate, but 25% reduced damage and healing received, so it is what it is, but we're going after the warrior here again. He has nothing, so we have to commit. Go ahead and burrow just to let my monk catch me back up. I'm back to full health, so I pop up with the warrior underneath me or above me, so that way I can do some extra damage. And now we're connecting to the warrior here. And this is where it gets a bit sketchy. So I do a whole bunch of damage to this warrior, getting a whole bunch, and then I get coiled here into a really bad spot. I think his rallying cry faded and he fell over, but if they had survived that, I would have been in a terrible spot right there and I could have lost the match. But here is myself and the warrior again, turbo cleave into this matchup. Very, very unfortunate here, and it was my fault we lost because I missed a polymorph. But again, just like last time, warlock is kind of the main focus, but again, anytime they use like mobility or anything like that, we want to make sure we're switching to the nearest caster, so that way we get maximum value out of our damage. So here I quickly swap. The warlock gated out or portaled out, I'm not sure, so I'm just committing some damage to the mage. You can just see how much I am hitting him for. He's getting chunked down. So now the warlock is closest to me, so I'm just going to quickly swap to him, interrupt his shadow bolt, you know, kind of make his casting life miserable. We get a huge amount of damage, but unfortunately the paladin's able to recover very quickly. And this is where we lost because I kept missing the polymorphs. Our monk was out in the open, and I definitely should have had these polymorphs done and over with, but I didn't even notice. So that was completely my fault. It's a bit unfortunate, but it happens when you're very tunnel visioned like that. So now it's myself and the warlock once again. So this one was very, very interesting because the warlock just decides the warrior is going to go down. So he drops spear. I'm just going to burrow it. Why not? Ignore all damage. Make sure we take nothing. Perfect. So I'm going to do a whole bunch of damage to this warrior, pop some cooldowns, send everything, and he uses die by the sword, I believe. So, like usual, I'm just going to switch to the other target. No point in hitting into a major defensive, so get quite a bit of damage. We interrupt Searing Glare, forcing the paladin to then pick a target, but they're all healthy, so they're safe. So I quickly drop HP. So I go ahead. Okay, they're obviously hitting me pretty hard. So I just drop an astral shift. And this is where the warlock just decides, oh, I'm just gonna do a bajillion damage and fear the paladin once. There's the fear, and now the warrior's just gonna fall over. It's just ridiculous. He just decided, oh, I'm just going to do a bajillion damage. But anyways, guys, that is it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Laters!